Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of WASD at the PC Games Zen Theatre. Open question about how we're going to pronounce WASD, and WASD is my decision. So today, to kick us off for the day, we're thrilled to welcome the co-founders of 2 Point Studios. You'll have seen just outside the doors 2 Point Campus, their latest release, although it's delayed now to August 9th. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
That's right, August 9th. Take a look and give it a spin for yourself. It's a lot of fun, and you can check out our coverage on PC Games Zen. So we'll start with some introductions. Between the three of these gentlemen, they have a ton of experience in the industry at some of the UK's most influential studios dating back to the mid-90s. So we're thrilled to get a chance to chat to them, to go over their careers, and to lead us right up to the foundation of 2 Point Studios. So from my left.
I'm Mark Webley. I'm one of the co-founders of 2 Point. I'm the studio director, and we're quite a small studio, and I'm sort of very much involved with game design.
I'm Ben Heimers. I'm much less experienced than these guys, but yeah, I've been going for 15 years, something like that. I'm a technical director.
Ben's the smart one out of us.
I'm the smart one.
The brains.
And this is Gary.
I'm Gary Carr, and I am also one of the directors and founders, and I've been doing this stuff primarily with these two guys for the last, on and off for the last 30 years nearly, I think it is now. Yeah.
So can you give us a very quick overview of your careers to date, you're taking in Bullfrog and Lionhead and all the other wonderful places you guys have worked?
Yeah, before getting into games, I was a programmer, and I worked in accounting software. Fortunately, I did a little demo. Got a job at Bullfrog, not working on my game, but I got a job at Bullfrog. That's where I met Gary. Bullfrog was amazing, tiny little studio when I joined. Gary was already there, and we eventually were able to work together on a project called Theme Hospital, which we loved. It was brilliant. Very small team, probably about 6 of us on that project. Then I left and co-founded Lionhead Studios with Peter Molyneux, Tim Rance, and Steve Jackson. And, again, an amazing time there. I think I was there about 15 years. I left in 2013, and in 2016, Gary came to me and said, what about this idea for a studio to make these little people games? And I thought, yeah, maybe, I'm not sure anyone would be that interested. Introduced me to Ben, and that's kind of how 2 Point came about. So that's my story.
Yeah, mine's shorter. I worked at Rare for a long time, worked on Connect Sports 1 and 2. A ton of unreleased prototype things. Went to Creative Assembly, so I've worked with Sega before. On Alien Isolation. Then went to Lionhead on Gary's team, working on some prototype things that I shouldn't say about, but that's where we kind of got the idea to carry on making this kind of game. I played a hell of a lot of Theme Hospital back in the day when I was a kid, and yeah, I think it was from me that the desire to make like a spiritual successor came from. And then not long after that, we started the company together. And that's that.
Cool. Despite my youthful looks, I actually started in the mid-80s. Palace Software, back in the 8-bit days. I co-designed, did the art and animation on a game called Barbarian. Worked there for 4 years, and then 89, I joined Bullfrog.
Ben wasn't born at this time, I don't.
Yeah, how old were you in 1985, Ben?
85, that was when I was born.
Brilliant, thanks. Joined Bullfrog as the 6th member, working in an attic above a hi-fi shop. A few years after that, Mark joined us, and we, along with a lot of people, were really sort of into these little people games. So we made quite a few of those over the years. Left at the same time, roughly, as Mark, to become an MD at Muckyfoot Productions. When Mark was doing Black and White, I was doing Startopia, so we were kind of in competition at that time, and then I
Barely.
later conceded that Lionhead were more successful than Muckyfoot, and then joined Lionhead as one of the studio heads at the time, working with Mark on the movies. And then I went on to run an incubation team with Ben, which was kind of the inspiration to go back into the saddle and start a studio again with Mark. That's it.
Fantastic. I think I heard a member of the audience perk up when you mentioned Barbarian, so I just want to be clear, you'll have plenty of time to ask some questions if that's what you'd like to do. And
Only
to
if
anyone
they're very
who's
old that have perked up, I imagine.
and to anyone who's watching on the Twitch stream as well, we'll get some questions from that too. So for the meat of the talk, I'd really, rather than sort of pick over the sort of the structure, I guess, of your careers, I'd love to get one really sort of transformative moment from each of you. Like, was there a point in all of this wonderful experience where you realized a sort of fundamental or universal truth, I guess, about the games industry, about making games, about the nature of collaboration, anything significant that you'd like to sort of really share with the audience today?
Yeah, it's difficult to kind of think of one sort of key moment where you sort of you change your opinion about things. But I think, I think over the years the most important thing I think that I've learned is to be nice. Really, I think you've got to care about the team you work with, and I think you've got to work on stuff that you love doing. And ultimately, we're not brain surgeons. We don't save people's lives. We make games. So, we're kind of lucky to be in an industry like this and being able to have a career where we get paid to do something amazing. I think that there are sort of points along the way where you kind of think, wow, that was incredible experience, and you kind of look back on it. But as you're kind of going through it, you sometimes don't notice these things. I think that probably the most poignant time for me was, I think, when we released 2 Point Hospital. It was kind of just amazing. I mean, quite emotional. And
I did actually cry.
He did. Gary was walking around Farnham where he'd put something on his head, a little doily or something.
Somebody had sent a cake, a thank you cake, and I think it might have been Simon, I'm not sure.
Ribbon.
And I remember it was from Chocky Wocky Doodah in Brighton.
Yeah,
I remember
that's
that, a little advertisement there. And I just
Not
put
anymore, they shut
put the ribbon round my head, and I forgot I had it on. And we could see almost immediately from the feedback you get through Steam data that
And
the game
Twitch
was actually
streams,
doing quite well. And that wasn't really, I hadn't really factored that in. I thought, let's make games again with people we like, because that's cool.
Yeah.
And that was about 50 at the time, 51 or something like that. So I was kind of middle-aged, and I thought my career was behind me, if you like. It's just that point in time. And I just went out to tell my wife, I think this game's actually going to do all right. And I just broke down, and I just had this bow on, this like pink checkered bow on my head, just crying in the middle of town on the phone to my wife. But it was an emotional thing, because we did it it was kind of a passion project rather than a commercial venture. So to make something we wanted to make, and then people actually like it, it just got too much for me, I think.
That's so lovely. I mean, I guess what you realized then was, I mean, not to sort of presuppose anything, but like, had you maybe fallen into some certain assumptions about what was popular or what was going to do well? And like, had you started to doubt that there was a space for games like this?
Well, I think we thought there was a space for games like this because we like playing them. I mean, we love Sims, and we kind of this kind of more light-hearted approach. And I think for us, the idea of a small team and us actually making games ourselves, rather than one of the things that often happens is you find a really great programmer and they get promoted up to be a lead, and half their time's programming, and people get promoted up into stupid roles and then they realize, hey, I'm not doing the thing I really love. And so starting us a little studio it wasn't a studio like Bullfrog, but the idea that we were a small team working close together, where everyone kind of had a voice and an opinion, and that's kind of what we wanted to do. So, as Gary said, it was a passion project, and we thought some people would like what we were doing just because I think we loved it, and
Yeah,
You know.
I don't know if he believed it even that far before the end, before we released it. But yeah, starting the company, Gary and I were quite into the idea of doing like a revival of something like Theme Hospital, and we approached Mark about it, but Mark was still quite like, are you sure? Does anyone actually even care about this kind of thing? It's really old. Nobody cares. But yeah, I've been playing them for years and years, and I think the success of Hospital speaks for itself. But yeah, you didn't even really sort of believe it up until
That's
it
right.
actually launched.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything you'd like to share from your own career, Ben, on that level?
Well, yeah. So you emailed through these
Yeah.
questions yesterday, so I had a bit of time to think about it. And in terms of like transformative moments, it's kind of similar. It's just I'd worked at a few really
Was
big
it meeting me
companies.
and Gary?
It was just being starstruck by these guys. Actually, that's not entirely. That wasn't going to be my answer, but that kind of was actually when I got the interview for Lionhead and sat next to Gary, and Gary just sat next to me and casually dropped in, "Hi there, I'm Gary. I made Theme Hospital." And
I always say I never said that. To me, it sounds
Definitely did.
so like that.
Definitely did.
Did I? God,
Yeah.
that sounds really rubbish.
Yeah, so I was a bit starstruck. So, all right, that's bonus answer. That's not what I was going to say. It's just working at large companies. The realization that just large companies aren't for me and probably aren't for any of us. There's definitely a place for very big companies. You won't end up with like a lot of the big AAA games that we have now that lots of people love to play. But yeah, just the experience of working in smaller teams is lovely, and working with a small group of people that you know and like and have worked with for years, that's
We say know and love, Ben.
know and love.
Well, there you go. I mean, that leads me on to what I was going to talk about next, which is sort of the nature and importance of collaboration and partnership. Like, we've got, a big careers booth with Yuki next door. This festival's always, this expo has always been about, historically has always been about getting, students and aspiring devs and indies in. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the importance of all of this. You guys obviously met at Bullfrog and Lionhead and presumably got along, which is why you co-founded 2 Point together. And so much of game dev is about these collaborations, because there are the occasional incredibly talented one-person shows who can do everything, but so much of all of this is a collaboration. How did you know that you had found someone that you could work with? When did you have the idea of partnering together, and when did you finally decide to take the leap?
Go on.
Well, it was a bit of a happy accident, really, that, and I totally hate the fact there's no such company as Lionhead anymore. It's such a shame, but it did help us, if I'm honest, because at the time we were putting the team together, a lot of people we would love to have worked with who had very good, responsible jobs at Lionhead became available. So that really helped. I mean, these were people we'd earmarked, but never assumed we'd be able to sort of pull them out of their very nice jobs. So that was fantastic. But I think we always wanted just to work with people we liked. Fundamentally, there's a lot of talented people, but if you don't get on, I think that comes through in your work. So working with a bunch of friends, and we were lucky, it was a blend of new people and ex-people we'd spent a lot of time, gone through a lot of trials and tribulations with on previous projects. So we've got some guys back at Lionhead we've worked with for over 20 years as well. In some cases, Alan, 30 years. I mean, these are a lot of experienced people, but there is also a lovely blend of new people, because what we don't want to do is get kind of stuck in a groove. We want people to kind of prod us along, and Ben inspired that in me, actually, because when he said he was a fan of the games we used to make at Bullfrog, I was still listening more to him than anything I had to say, because he was far more about what's going on today in the world of gaming, and he was just kind of inspiring me to want to do something with what we've learned over the years, rather than just sort of stay where we were, which I was quite happy at Lionhead. It was a great place, right? But there was just something that just inspired me to think, oh God, yeah, we should go back to that kind of thing, because as Mark said as well, you get promoted out of being a creative person. You get, the more experience you get, the further away you get from being hands-on. So all these talented people were just ended up being managers of other people because games have bigger and bigger teams. So the ethos for 2 Point was to go, right, we're not going to have a big team so that everybody can be a developer again. And I think that was the best decision we ever made, really, because it would have been easy to scale up the studio, get some investment, become 50 people in overnight, and then suddenly you're just a manager again, and you're not actually putting your skills forward. Yeah. I'm a rubbish manager anyway, so I'm a much better game developer, I think.
Yeah, I think the timing of everything just kind of seemed so lucky. Lucky. I mean, there's a lot of people,
luck anyway, yeah.
As Gary said, we earmarked, and I don't know if we could have said, would you leave your, decent job at Lionhead and come and work for this startup and take a pay cut? And, that would have been a hard sell. And I think it just kind of gave us the opportunity to pick that initial 6-7 people that were absolutely incredible. People, top of our shopping list, really.
Yeah.
So it was easy because we kind of knew these people. We knew we liked them. We knew they knew what they were doing, and so we didn't have to have like lots of strong direction. Like, this is how you do this. We had people that just kind of would tell us, this is how we're going to do the art. This is how we'll build the animation systems, and so
it was good to have no egos. It was good to have everybody there that joined us in those early days had equal experience. So why would we manage them? Why would we tell them our ideas are the right ideas? So it felt really collaborative. And it also just gave us time that we didn't have to, I suppose, go through a process of, deciding what everyone's going to do. We all decided it together. It just speeded things up a little bit. And we just talked across a room. Games used to be like that. There wasn't huge amounts of documentation and lots of meetings. You just do it, shout across a room at each other. And it allowed us to be as quick as other startups. So we were quite lean. We did the whole game from beginning to end in just less than 2 years, which was unheard of back in Lionhead days. It would take about double that to just get anywhere near a finished game.
I do have that sense that that's what it was like in the 90s, and having played games since then, there is sort of a sense of not professionalism that sort of does a disservice to the 90s, but like there's lots of conventions, I guess, that comes in and ways of doing things, and I think you can sense some of that, and you can sense the difference when playing 2 Point. Is there any disquiet about the deliberate limits, I guess, that you put on your studio size and scale? Because do you ever wish that you could do more, take on more projects? I know you have big ambitions for 2 Point County ultimately.
Sometimes. I think there's probably like the assumption that we'd grow. Because like Gary was saying, it would be easy to just say, we've had a bit of a success, let's just hire loads, make a bunch of teams, make a bunch of games, go into all sorts of different areas. But we're trying hard not to, because we don't want to lose the small studio thing. And Campus is being done with, we're at like just over 40 now people. So it's still not a big studio by any means. But I think it's been hard to not grow.
I think certainly 2 Point Hospital we made with a small team. I think by the time we shipped, we were 15,
something like that.
Yeah,
in the teens.
For the most part, we were kind of less than 10 as we were building it, and what we made was something for the PC, and we eventually came on to consoles. Was it a year later?
18 months. We shipped 18 months after release.
So that was hard work, because we were doing things as easily, not as easily, but as we were trying to be lean. We weren't necessarily thinking this will go onto console.
We just didn't do it very well, did we?
No, we didn't. Okay, so with Campus, I think we kind of kicked off and said we want to do this on, PC, Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. So from day one, I think you kind of need a bigger technical team to kind of think about that, and how you think about the controller, mouse and keyboard from day one. So your team is bigger because we're doing more, and there's over the 2 years of hospital, we've done a lot of updates, quality of life, more features that people have asked for, and things that we felt we should put in. So all those things are in Campus, of course. But we started again pretty much on the code base, because
Yeah, it's rewritten from scratch because it needs to be, because Hospital was done kind of with a time constraint. We knew we wanted to release something at a certain point, so we just took all the shortcuts that we could to get something out. But for Campus, we wanted to make sure that the quality was there from day one. It was there on all the consoles day one.
Awesome.
And the like fidelity of the characters and environments and animations and everything is all like another step up from Hospital. So for that, we've had to hire a little bit, but
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's us promoting Campus there. We didn't do that.
I also don't think we should be in a rush to grow up. I mean, our stable buddies at Sega, we've got CA, Sports Interactive, Relic, Amplitude.
Yeah.
The nearest to us in age is Amplitude. I think they're over 10 years old. Relic, I think, are around 30. CA are over 30. I think Sports Interactive are 25 years old. So let us, enjoy our childhood and stay small and get to find out what our identity is and grow sensibly. Because you can blow companies up too quickly. And there's just not the substance and there's not the infrastructure there. So we're a young company. We're not young, but we're a young company. And I think, keeping small will just help put a good, foundation in for the future.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's clear that it's very intentional. I'd like to ask, I guess, a little bit about the, I suppose, the alternative models. Without asking you to, name any names, unless you would like to, what experience have you guys had of a sort of slightly more top-down studio structure? We hear about autorism. There's been some troubling reports in the press about people who run their studios in a very dictatorial way. And sort of a single visionary. And I just wanted to ask, I guess, is there anything at all to be said for that? Perhaps it's necessary when a studio gets too big, or what do you think about the relative merits of that model?
Well, you look at games like Assassin's Creed, which I love, and it's amazing. I just don't understand how a studio could ever make something so massive. And so how they do that, I have no idea. So I think my experience, certainly at Bullfrog, at the point we left, there's about 5 or 6 different teams doing different projects. So I'm not sure I've really got that much experience of that, dictatorial design direction. I mean, you worked at CA, so I don't know how that kind of system works.
It was big, but there wasn't like a single visionary. There were like multiple building things in different ways, not too dissimilar to us. So I've got no direct experience of that kind of thing, but it seems like it would work better in much larger studios where it's hard to have a shared vision across the team. Where things could kind of, if everyone's got a slightly different idea of what the game is and everyone's got a slightly different idea of the quality and what you're aiming for, then I imagine game quality would suffer more. So there's probably more room for that kind of visionary in a larger studio.
It's inevitable to some point. If you've got 5,000 people working on a project, someone's got to start making some clear decisions. And even at Lionhead, which punched above its weight, because it was a AAA studio, but rather than thousands of people working on games, it was a few hundred people. So it was always difficult to sort of keep that quality bar when you've only got a few hundred people. But even on the teams I managed, I felt there was a point in the project where you had to be more dictatorial because you just had, so many man hours going into a project that you couldn't be too liberal about what gets done and what doesn't get done. And towards the end, I was quite, no, we're doing this, not this.
I think that's true even for us. I think there's a lot of opinions and lots of people putting ideas in, and that's really fertile ground. But ultimately, on the design side, somebody has to go, well, we're going to go with this. And so Ben Huskins, our design director, is that call. And whilst he reports into me, he's the guy that we turn to. And so on the visual side of things,
well, we're design led, and that's something we've always believed in. That design should drive things, and if it comes down to it, that's what I will concede to Mark. I may not always agree with Mark, but ultimately I believe in us being a design-led studio. So Mark wears that hat a little more than I wear that hat. So, if we go toe-to-toe on something, I will concede to Mark. And in the same way when I was director on a project...
Or more so to Ben Huskins,
from your side of it all, that's all.
I love the idea of Ben Huskins.
And I think that's the way we...
On the technical, we have no idea what the technical guys do. They just,
Ben, he has to do all the dirty work, really.
Yeah,
not the fun arguments we have over whether it should be blue or green or anything like that.
Yeah. We can do either.
But there is up until a point, definitely a democracy. But as someone said in Sports Interactive, it might have been Miles, he said, we're a democracy, and then towards the end, we're a dictatorship. And I think I can get what he's saying there. There is a point where someone's got to make a call, because you've got to land the game, right? It's got to come out, and someone's got to be the bad person that has to make the difficult decisions.
But I think even probably in the biggest teams, you've got to have collaboration, because there's not surely ever going to be some person that, well, unless it's say one guy or two or three guys just do it, but somebody that can be the best at animation, be the best at art, be the best at UI, be the best at design, be the best at programming. So there has to be collaboration, surely, even in the hardest teams to work in.
Yeah, I think that probably is a universal across lots of creative endeavors. I remember reading an article, an interview with Brian May of Queen, who said that when they were collaborating with Bowie on Under Pressure, there were these endless arguments until Bowie was eventually the one who just said, no, we're going to do this. And it's what you need to get it over the line, I guess, in certain circumstances. I want to bring it back.
Yeah, we're like Queen and David Bowie. That's what we're like.
Yes, there you go. There's the comparison. I want to bring it back to 2 Point Studios then. We've touched on this already a little bit, but is there anything else you'd like to add about how you applied all these lessons that we've just been talking about to the sort of culture of your new studio and your approach to making games?
I think from day one, but kind of before we had got anyone, we kind of had an idea that we wanted to be fair. I mean, all that original team were shareholders, and I think that was important, especially because they were taking pay cuts to come and work with us. We may have done all right, we may not have. So it's kind of a big leap of faith from them to come and join us, really, because after Lionhead went down,
they could go
all
anywhere.
those guys pretty much had job offers within a few days.
Yeah.
So coming to join us was pretty good. So I think that kind of fairness has been really important, and not the fact that we're the founders, we'll get the most, and big bonuses are ours. I think we've been really trying to share that across the team, because we're nothing without those brilliant people. So that was one of the things I think we kind of...
And just letting people get back to sort of... When people try and get into the games industry, they don't want to sort of not be part of the decision-making of a game. They want to get involved in that. And sometimes in bigger teams, you're just making a shield, or you're the person who does the body armor, and that's all you're doing. You're almost like a widget person, just doing something you're told to do. That isn't why people get into the games industry. They want to say, oh, what if? They want to have that moment, and that's what we're trying to celebrate, is we've got a team that can actually all go, what if? And we're not going, it's not your role to sort of speak up. So we're just trying to keep that as long as possible, because that's why people want to make games. They want to come up with the ideas along with everyone else. And I don't think you have to be just a designer or just a programmer or not. Everyone can be, that's their primary job, and their secondary job should be to contribute to the ideas. And I think everyone chips in, and at some point I can think of nearly everybody on the team that said something that's gone into the game, and it's their piece. In fact, Bullfrog, if you look at old Bullfrog games, it used to say designed by Bullfrog. It didn't say designed by Mark Webley or Peter Molyneux or Gary Kite. It just said Bullfrog, because it was everybody's game, and I think everyone wore that badge of honor, really. So I think that's something we've tried to go back to, I think, with 2 Point.
That's lovely, yeah. And that sort of leads me neatly into a near final question. I asked you guys for one piece of specific actionable advice that you might give to students and devs in the audience, the most valuable pearls of wisdom. Anything you'd like to share?
Go on, Ben. You're more.
I'd say learn a little bit about business stuff. For anyone thinking of starting a company or going it alone. You don't need to go and do a business degree or anything like that, but just knowing a little bit about lots of things to do with business, look at gamesindustry.biz and read about recent company acquisitions and things like that. Know what profit means and the kind of costs that a company might be expected to pay, taxes, all that kind of boring stuff. Just knowing a little bit about this will help you a lot, because at some point, unless you're doing it purely as a art project where you don't mind about losing money, at some point you're going to talk to other companies, you're going to talk to publishers, and knowing what you're talking about whilst you're in the room with them is going to help you in negotiations and making sure you don't get screwed.
Yeah.
Such a grown-up answer. That was like my parents.
Really boring answer. Practical answer.
Just never give up. If you're passionate about it, at some point you'll just punch your way through into the industry. Be passionate. Just keep trying. It might take 5, 6, 7, 8, 100 goes, but you just got to keep. If it's what you want to be, you'll become it. Don't be frightened to take on anything you're offered, whether it's some of the people that have got some of the most outstanding roles in the industry. I know where they started just testing games and just doing it for nothing.
In fact, quite a lot of our team. I mean, our
QA
executive
end up
producer
becoming
is
head of
starting
studios.
QA.
I mean, there's so many that I can think of. So that's a great way in if you're not naturally talented at art, or you're not that creative, or you don't think you're that creative. You may learn to become creative by getting into the industry. So just be prepared to do anything to get in there, and just stay passionate.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to get in as a programmer or designer, I think it's more impressive when we kind of look at applicants if they've actually done some demos and they've done some. It doesn't have to be a full game. I mean, it just has to be some ideas or some mechanics you've sort of built in Unity or Unreal. I mean, it's just the fact that you've done something is cool. It's just, rather than just say I want to be in games, but I've never done anything. You can do things. You can find other people that are interested. Some people that may be more into art, and if there isn't, I think there's libraries of art and animation you can kind of use to kind of just get your idea across, because I think that shows that passion. I think that's important. I think if you form a studio, we were sort of saying earlier, I think, if you can hold on to your IP, that's not always easy, but if you can hold on to your IP, that's really the most valuable thing. And I think, I don't know how easy that is. I mean, I know some publishers, if they're going to fund you, they'll want, your IP. But we were lucky with Sega. We kind of had an amazing, springboard into existence with them, and we were lucky to be able to hold on to our IP. And that's kind of, we had a vision for it as well. We kind of wanted to make this 2 Point County, these little people games, and that's why we built the studio. So we started the company with a vision, and I guess a philosophy of kind of how we wanted to, the kind of studio we wanted to be. And I guess we'd had the experience of thinking, that was great, and that was a bit tougher, so we kind of want to make a studio more like this. So having that idea, and I guess for 2 Point, we kind of had a path that we kind of wanted to follow. We kind of knew what we wanted to do next. We didn't know we wanted to do campus at the time, but we kind of knew we wanted to do these little games. And in fact, when we did Theme Hospital, we had lots of ideas like Theme Prison, Theme Resort, and we thought, maybe we'll do that next. When we finished, we kind of went off different directions and never did that. So that was the kind of impetus to kind of, we kept saying, we should do that again. We should make those little games. And
I think I remember the first press trip that I attended for 2 Point Hospital, and you mentioned this and talked about potential future concepts, and I think we landed on 2 Point Service Station.
That's probably my idea.
I still want to do that.
He hasn't shut up about it for the last 5 years.
I can't wait.
Keeps bringing it up.
One, I reckon.
One day he'll do it. I think.
There you go. All right,
They're actually very interesting.
I want to open the floor to questions now. If anyone from the audience would like to ask the guys anything, I'll check our Twitch chat as well, but just raise your hands. Yes, ma'am. If you could go to the mic in the center, please. And we'll take a look on Twitch as well. I don't know whether there's anything right now, but we can talk about 2 Point Campus. I want to ask
If it's about bugs you found in 2 Point Hospital, Ben can deal with that.
I'm very sorry.
There you go.
First, my first Bullfrog game, I think, was Populous. But to this day, I still play one, which is Dungeon Keeper. I don't suppose there's ever going to be a chance of a 2 Point dungeon.
That, you'd have to talk to Peter Molyneux about that. That was one of Peter's games, so
Right.
it's not one that we would look at. I mean,
I mean, to be honest, we
he's got the license as
we
well.
haven't set up 2 Point to do old Bullfrog
No.
games, if I'm honest. But
No.
there was definitely a lot of teams at Bullfrog, and Peter's passion was to make Dungeon Keeper. At the same time as Dungeon Keeper was being made, Mark and I were doing Theme Hospital, so there was lots of these different teams going on. But I love Dungeon Keeper as well. It was a wonderful game, but it just isn't something I think we have any right
it's
to
not
explore,
our- yeah.
really.
It's not enough.
Thank you. It's
you know?
worth an eye.
Sorry.
It was worth
Oh no,
just
that's
yeah.
worth a try.
asking. And I say,
Just go and email Peter and just.
I mean, I've introduced my
That's your
daughter
daughter
here
playing earlier outside in the hall.
Yeah, I mean, we've both played Theme Hospital and then on to 2 Points, so...
I saw how competent you were at playing Campus, so it was great to see. Thank you. It was really good to see you playing the game earlier.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool. Any more for it? Yes, sir. Again to the mic.
Thank you for the
there goes
question.
no more sequels of Bullfrog games. There goes my hope of a Gene Wars 2.
Gene Wars, wow, that's very niche.
I love that. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed your talk. Big fan of your games and the genre in general. My question is about IP. You mentioned, I've got loads of questions, but I'm just going to pick one. My question is about IP. You mentioned how important it is to hold on to your brand and your IP. I actually run a tabletop games company, and we make board games, detective board games. And I was wondering, are you ever approached by other companies wanting to use your IP for other things, such as merchandise or board games tie-in? I know, like Stardew Valley, for example, recently had a board game release. Are you ever approached by companies about that? Is it annoying when you're approached, or do you welcome it? If it is annoying, why is it annoying, and what can people do to access your IP?
About doing a tabletop version? Actually, we have been approached, actually, and I think we're big board game fans, so it's quite cool, actually. Nothing's actually happened yet on anything, but we love that side of things.
Mark actually geeks out over board games, so people that develop them, he gets. So if anybody comes to us saying, "Would you like to do 2 Point board game?" Oh, we have to speak to these people. He gets quite sort of excited by that.
Yeah.
We don't own much IP, first of all. I have a little bit of IP from Muckyfoot days, and that, those things do come up from time to time. It's actually a compliment, usually.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to talk to you about your IP, it always feels like a bit of a compliment. No, it's never annoying.
Yeah.
Owning IP is I think Mark was trying to make the point. It's very easy to sort of give up IP because you think that's a way to get something done that you want everyone to see. But it's the only thing that gives you a stake in making sure that thing is the thing that's in your head, right? So I think that's the important thing. It isn't always easy. I think the three of us were lucky that we used the one thing we did have, which was a lot of experience. And also we were lucky it was Sega, because Sega are very, very smart in making sure that what they do is don't make you almost regret the decision to actually start the project off in the first place by just taking away your crown jewels. We were able to make that game because we owned the ideas we were coming up with. So I think that's the thing. If you feel immediately that you've been compromised, it's going to come across in the game you end up making. So it isn't always easy because people hold a lot more of the cards to say, look, if you need the money, you may have to surrender certain things. But just do your best to hold on as much as you can, because you only got it once, right? You've only got that property once.
We
Thank
might
you.
have time for just one more question. We've got some viewers, but people are being shy on Twitch. Yes, sir. And then we'll wrap up.
Great. Thanks so much. So my question is, obviously, when you set up 2 Point, you were really experienced. So Sega might have thought you were a safe bet. But obviously, the studio, you've talked about the passion. I know lots of students that I work with want to do similar things, have small studios. Could you maybe talk a bit about how you think, as a new person to the industry, how you might go about starting some kind of studio? What routes might there be? Or do you think that experience is required? I'd just be interested to hear kind of from your point of view.
Can I just jump in quickly, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I think Mark and I learned was that we wanted to present strong business plans, and we'd had a bit more experience than Ben at the time. Ben was still having to sort of earn his keep, basically, so Mark and I had to do a lot of the pitching in the early days. I mean, obviously Ben fed into the plan, but we'd done a lot of that stuff. So look into how you're presenting your business plan. Don't just go, I've got this great idea, because everyone's got a great idea, and, you know, ideas aren't actually always the most important thing, strangely, because you can make games about nearly anything, as long as you've got to have the passion, right? But if you haven't got the business plan, if you haven't got how you're going to get to the number of, you know, you're asking for, you know, how long it's going to take, the justification of it, then I think you'll probably have a short meeting. So we had a pretty strong business plan, because actually we didn't have a huge amount else. We had a little. Ben came up with a demo, but by comparison to what a lot of people can present, it was not that big. It was you know, a couple of weeks of Ben's time, but often people put very almost finished looking games together. But what we did have was a very good business plan of who we felt the game was aimed at, how much we thought it was going to cost, how long it was going to take, what the ambition of the studio was. And yes, we leaned into our history a little bit, but the plan was solid. So yeah, just do a lot of research on how to present, try and put that plan together, and then that gets a long way, I think.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Thank you all in the audience for questions. We'll wrap it there. Join us please in a round of applause for our lovely panel, co-founders of 2 Point Games. Thank you.